The calamity of Z-Day shook the entire world. We, the people, looked to our governments for aid, but we were all deceived. As containment raged, relief camps were deployed, and Z-hives were purged in a nuclear fire. The world's elite had a plan of their own. While each country had their own version, none gained more infamy than the United Kingdom and Project Bellaraphon. With its armed forces spread across the world, it could not afford the guise of other countries. They would leave the vast majority of its citizenry to die, either to the Zeds or its indiscriminate shelling and bombing of heavily populated zones. As the chaos of the outbreak raged, Project Bellaraphon was in full effect. Industry leaders, intellectuals, government officials, and high-ranking military officers were evacuated north to the nuclear facilities at Westfield, which were already in the process of fortification. Massive concrete barriers were erected to envelop the nuclear facility, and such that the first Great Walled City was born. Now, that in and of itself was not enough for Bellaraphon to gain the infamy it so desired. That came with the events of Z-Day plus 97. You see, a caravan of Londoners had slowly been pushing north, numbering 1,592 souls. Their progress and their supplies dwindled, until over the horizon they spotted the Great Walls of Bellaraphon. Ecstasy and joy roared across the caravan to what they perceived as a respite from the hostility of the wasteland. How wrong they were. As the horde of malnourished and sick approached the Great Walled City, a thunderstorm rolled across the horizon, enshrouding the valley in a veil of shadow. Then came the distant thunder. Not from the storm clouds, but the British 87mm field artillery housed within the walled city. When the first barrage fell, it struck the center of the caravan, the densest point where the young, the weak, and the sick took refuge. The low-yield shells used by the 87mm guns, well, they often did not kill outright, instead leaving the screaming, eviscerated remnants of anyone nearby. In the chaos and commotion, a total of 6 volleys were fired from within the city, and the caravan was left decimated. The few remaining survivors that had escaped the carnage took to the airwaves, and their message slowly spread across the globe. From that day on, wastelanders of the world knew they were alone in their fight for survival. Now, like I had said, Bellaraphon may have been the most infamous of the Great Walled Cities, but it sure as shit wasn't the only one. Governments across the world abandoned their populace to seek safety and shelter with the world's elite. The bonds of the UDC crumbled as each government attempted to deal with the crisis and return their soldiers to the homeland where they were most needed. Any semblance of civilization or structure faded away. Walled cities retreated inwards from the horrors of the wasteland, and those left to wander the hellscape that was once our world were transformed by its horrific nature. But who knows what our future truly holds? 10 years ago, Z-Day brought out the worst in humanity, and at the dawn of a new decade, who can say what truly lies ahead? And with that, once again I wish to share something with you from the old world. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last wave by, crying how bright their fell deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on that sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.